Hey guys, what's up? I'm so excited to be here, playing Subnautica Below Zero with you guys and with some amazing scientists. I'm Cecilia Anastasio. I'm a writer with Wired. I cover video games here. I hope you can hear me okay. It's been a really long time since I've streamed, so please welcome me back and please excuse any mistakes. We have some incredible guests today who will be experts on the topic of the bottom of the ocean and everything that dwells there. So, without further ado, I'd love for them to introduce themselves.
Hi, Twitch. My name is Casey Machado. I am a research engineer at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and my job is to design and operate robots to explore the most remote places in the ocean, which are sort of under ice, like we're going to see in Subnautica, and also in extreme depths, like bottom of ocean trenches and that sort of thing.
And hi, Twitch. My name is Mike White. I am a expedition coordinator with NOAA Ocean Exploration. We are coming to you live from the NOAA ship Okeanos Explorer in the control room, where we're about to set sail tomorrow on our 2021 technology demonstration. My role is essentially a project manager, making sure all of our scientific objectives get met, making sure our engineering objectives are met, and making sure they are reported out on and our data is publicly available at the end of the cruise.
You guys have your first question. Are the oceanographers gamers?
I think we, this is a definite yes. I play a whole bunch of video games. I'm quite familiar with Subnautica. I also play a lot of tabletop games. I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan. I do some writing for independent Dungeons and Dragons company, 2C Gaming, if you ever want to check them out. And yeah, I play a lot of video games in my spare time.
I used to play quite a bit of video games. I'm a big Elder Scrolls fan. Like I said, Breton all the way. That 50% Magicka resistance, makes a huge difference. But I also have a 4-month-old at home now, and so I have my video gaming time has been much quelled, and of course spent a lot of time prepping for our expedition at hand. But yes, I think it's fair to say we're both gamers. Definitely Casey more than I.
You guys are so cool. I'm the weakest link in this stream, but I will do my best as a gamer to explore the bottom of the ocean with you guys and talk a little bit about what is going to go on tomorrow when you go out into the ocean and explore the floor, right? Is it the floor of it?
So we do all types of ocean exploration here with NOAA Ocean Exploration and on the NOAA ship Okeanos Explorer. So yes, we definitely map the seafloor. And yes, we have all sorts of, we have our remotely operated vehicles. They explore the seafloor. However, we also do exploration of the water column. So we also have sonars on board that get water column backscatter. That can tell you about where all the creature features are hanging out in the water column.
Creature
that can tell
features.
you a little bit about, creature features. They're mostly a lot of them are pretty jelly / mucusy. And so I see creature features, right? Because you think sea turtles, but for the most part, a lot of them are pretty gelatinous, right? You think larvation or siphonophores. They have what you call a screen of death, which essentially is a hanging screen of mucus that catches things. So yes, seafloor, but we also do the water column. And Orpheus, which is our technology that we're demonstrating tomorrow, I think you could argue, sure, you do the seafloor, but you also have a CTD on there. You have chemical sensors, so we're also talking about the water column as well.
Yeah, most of the stuff I do is all robotics, and so we spend a vast amount of our time actually on the seafloor. But you got to go through a lot of the ocean to get there. So we're always have the cameras on and looking, and there's cool stuff at every sort of altitude.
Most definitely, and when Casey says a lot, she's definitely underplaying it. The vehicles we're talking about tomorrow, this Orpheus class of AUVs. They're going down nearly 4 miles of water, right? I mean that's the idea eventually here. So in this cruise, we're going to do some iterations eventually, hopefully to get the WHOI and NASA teams there. But a lot of water.
That's a whole mountain. That's multiple mountains.
the bottom of the Mariana Trench. You could fit I think the entire Mount Everest in the trench and still have a couple of miles of water.
Yeah, it still have some breathing room, really.
Oh my gosh.
Enough to pack your carry-on luggage for sure.
Overnight, like you shouldn't see me pack.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen you pack. Well, okay. To be fair, Casey, we just loaded that Connex box on the ship. I've seen you pack, and it is quite a bit.
Container.
So right now, one of the things we're going through is securing for sea tomorrow. Because as soon as we get going, we're going to be moving all around. So we have a lot of things that we're strapping down, making sure they don't turn into missiles on the ship. But what were you saying? So like on the ship and like any ocean exploration vessel with like a multi-beam sonar, like we can map multiple underwater mountains in like an overnight mapping session and not blink an eye, not drop a bead of sweat.
That's bonkers. That's so cool. So I want to start playing this game and like talking about what you guys are doing a little bit more in depth. I'm sorry. I gotta read a little thing though. I got sent.
Too deep for us.
Too deep for you. Oh, the ocean puns will flow. The ocean puns will flow. I gotta read a little paragraph before we get started. I was sent this by people above me. So here goes. Appearance by members of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration does not constitute endorsement of any goods or services, and all opinions expressed are solely those of individuals and not the organizations they represent. Okay. So with that done. With that done, it's time to game. Let's go.
Let's do it.
A little bit about Subnautica.
Right?
Hard mode. Oh no.
Hardcore?
I don't think so. I actually have never played Subnautica before. I'm a big fan of Abzu, which is another ocean game. This is Below Zero. It is coming out tomorrow. We were lucky enough to get an early copy. And because I'm new at this, please give me advice if you're somebody who's played this series before. I don't play a lot of survival games. Mostly I play the shooters. But yeah, so this was initially, I think, going to be DLC for Subnautica, and now it's like a whole separate game. And it's about surviving in the ocean on an alien planet.
You sure you want this?
So Celia, are you playing with the controller, or are you typing away with mouse and keyboard?
Mouse and keyboard, baby.
The meteor storm.
So I was just talking with one of our NASA jet propulsion friends down there, and one of the things they're going to be doing the next couple of days is watching the Orpheus transit underwater, and they actually have this mini ROV. Their controller is actually like an Xbox style controller that's exactly like this. So for folks watching, if you can drive that, you can be prepared to drive deep sea robots. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, we converted over to using Xbox controllers because they're really comfortable to use and all that.
And our remotely operating vehicle team, when they're on board, we're in partnership with the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration. They actually use PS4 controllers for some of their operations as well.
God.
So
these are so much more comfortable.
All those gamers out there, like if you want to run some deep sea robots, I got some friends that made jobs for them.
That's awesome. Also, I know that the volume from the game is a little bit loud, so I'm going to turn it down right when I get an option menu.
Well, we also have like ACs blowing in the back here, right, to keep everything cool on the ship. One of the things we are in a constant battle with is the ocean air, so we have a lot of fans blowing behind us too, so we get it.
Do you guys use Xbox 360 or Xbox One controllers?
Xbox 360 is most of the stuff we do. Best controller. Aside from original Nintendo.
The square, the rectangles.
Holy smokes! That did not go as planned.
Ooh, so we crash
I
landed.
should find a way into the water and get to the drop pod.
And we're going to the drop pod in the water.
My favorite part about this is like, you're in the Arctic, quick, get in the water.
That'd be interesting. I guess places like the water would be warmer in the Arctic, right? Than like the ambient air.
But the heat transfer from the water is way faster.
Right. So like the exothermic reaction is pulling heat away from you, right?
Well, it's convection. The water's flowing faster.
Okay.
So Casey, you said that you've actually like done dives in the Arctic before, right?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I was up in the Arctic with one of our vehicles called Myriad Under Ice, which is a ROV that can go under ice, like sort of like this environment here, because I, gesture wildly and knock my headphones out. And so we were doing some of this, and we were on an icebreaker, and we could go and it was much more like solid cover of ice over everything. So I actually got a chance to like go out and stand, on the ice, which is super weird to like walk off of the ship and then just stand next to the ship and look back to it. The thing that was really freaky is like you think like, oh, ice, it's all like nice and like perfectly like solid ice the whole way through, but like the top like 3 inches of it is kind of like slushy.
Oh, okay. Thinking like stick in and like please, I hope I stop.
Yeah, and eventually it does.
That's amazing. Like, did you see penguins and all other Arctic creatures while you were up there?
I did not. We saw one polar bear from a very, very far distance away, which is the distance that you want to keep polar bears when you're out and about there. Anytime you go out in the ice, somebody has to have like a shotgun or something with them because they're very curious and very hungry. So
oh wow,
we do that. But it was pretty barren. There's really gorgeous. It's basically like sunset all of the time because the days are so short. So the sun just like comes up. It's like sunrise. Sunset. It's like Fiddler on the Roof.
Or Bright Eyes, deep cut. If anyone knows.
Yeah.
Did you see the Northern Lights while you were up there too?
Unfortunately, I didn't. I sailed out of Tromsø, Norway, which is apparently one of the best places to see them, but it was like overcast and cloudy the entire time we were there before we left. So, unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not.
We'll have to go back. PDA. You even get emails on an alien.
I like these little things swimming around. So while we were down here yesterday to see them mobilized, and we were watching what are Nudibranchs. They're essentially these mollusks that kind of have wings almost. And they were like really attracted to some of the lights. We're down here in Port Canaveral on the piers. Neat to watch. It was very, very similar.
I love like how much we've already discussed like squishy ocean creatures already with the mollusks.
There's a lot of squishy ocean creatures. So one of the experts we have on board, her name is Meredith Everett from the NOAA's Northwest Fisheries Science Center, and we're doing environmental DNA, which is essentially capturing genetic material from the ambient environment. You can do that in the water column. You can do that in sediments. But she was saying the other day, like capturing eDNA in bamboo coral forests. Now, these forests are like potentially thousands of meters below the sea surface, so maybe miles. And she was saying how annoying it was because they just produce so much mucus. It's one of your biggest challenges. It's just like getting through the mucus sometimes. When we have samples on deck, just like getting them processed, just handling them. Like, there is a lot of mucus in the deep sea. I think it's fair to say.
I mean, when we were up in the Arctic, the area we were in, and I'm an engineer, not a biologist, so I apologize to any biologists who know things about the ocean.
I'm also not biologist.
But it's fine. So there's nobody to correct us. That's good. So under the Arctic, everywhere we were landing, we were looking at seamounts with sort of warm water coming up, where life tends to congregate underneath, but like the entire bottom was like maybe like a foot and a half of just like sludgy, like pee, snotty stuff. Yes. I think it was bacterial in that, but it was pretty. Well, I don't know. I think we haven't installed those on the robots.
I think if it was like some sort of like reducing environment, like sulfate or like iron reduction in there, it probably just like stinks like sulfur, right?
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. So, for me personally, I cannot think of a single scarier thing than the bottom of the ocean because of, lack of oxygen, constrained movement. I mean, sharks. Oh my God, sharks. Terrifying. How do you get over all of those fears to do science and to explore the ocean? Or were they just never fears for you?
I don't think I was ever. I grew up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, so I was always kind of at least like at the shore, along the ocean. And that for me, I've never really been too afraid of the ocean, like sort of in a grand scale. I guess the scariest thing for me is when you're like on the ship at night and you look out and there's just like absolutely nothing around you, and it's a very sort of like humbling, small feeling. But like the scariest thing to me is like if you go over the side of the ship like for some crazy reason, which I've never heard of happening.
Right.
But like there's always that visceral fear, like nobody's gonna know you fell over, and you're just gonna be in the water.
You know, I think I know I'm picking up what you're putting down, Casey, because I think about like, you know, a lot of what we used to see, like we're not sending humans down, you know, that deep. I mean, of course that happens, right? I mean, you talk about folks going to Challenger Deep, right? Five Peaks Project, right? James Cameron, so I think it was Dr. Catherine Sullivan, was it? She was the one that went down there, but you know, you have folks that go down there, and yes, those are human-occupied vehicles. For most of the science that we do, deep ocean exploration-wise at our office, we're actually using remotely operated vehicles, which means the pilots are sitting here in our wonderfully air-conditioned control room, and we actually have fiber optic tether, plus its own electricity that's going down to the vehicle, and that's actually streaming all of the data back onto the ship. So, you know, from like a human standpoint, you're really removed from a lot of that. And that's the benefit of a remotely operated vehicle, or say an autonomous vehicle, right? Like the Orpheus landers, right? It doesn't put you in harm's way at those depths. And I also want to add, sharks aren't scary. They are wonderful creatures, right? You know,
sharks aren't scary, and Mucus is good. You are turning my world upside down. Oh shit.
Population's
healthy. But I agree with Casey. You know, like some of the ocean exploration places you go to are so remote. You're looking out and you're like, the nearest person other than my crewmates on this ship are maybe like 2,000 nautical miles near to me, and it is a very scary, maybe, but isolating. You know, I mean, you never have a sense for how big the ocean is until you're thousands of miles away from land. I think.
It's weird to like get over like the horizon and then it's just ocean. It's really pretty.
Yeah.
But so talking about the sharks thing. So funny story about the shark. The biggest like jump scare I've ever had while doing all of this is, so we were piloting Nereus. This was probably like 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
And we were at about like 800 meters, so like you know, it's pretty deep, right? So you're not expecting like big stuff. And we were sat down at the bottom, and I was using the manipulator arm to do some sampling or something. And there's this, I think it was like a 10-gill shark.
10-gill.
Came over and just like, you know, gave us a little boop on the nose, like, and just like bumped in, but it just like comes out of nowhere. And you can't like really see it. I almost dropped the controls. I was like, oh, I'm done.
It's kind of like investigating, right?
Yeah.
I mean, use their the noses. We're going to be going to a really similar place. We were in 2018, Windows to the Deep expedition, and we caught this crazy instance where actually a grouper, so a grouper is like a big bottom fish with big mouth, here in the U.S. Southeast on the Blake Plateau, and it actually ate this baby shark, right? So you always think about sharks eating fish, but when the fish start eating sharks, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, who are you supposed to be afraid of?
He has like reconceptualized the trophy was there, right? I mean, what was happening?
That's so funny. That's so funny. The idea of you just being like boop to a huge shark, like I can't get over that. I absolutely cannot.
Yeah. I've seen great whites swim around the ship before.
Yeah, and like, you know, like I had a professor in college who called them, you know, characteristic megafauna, right? Like the big sharks, the biologists, right? Like there's biologists to say, like they do come and investigate. Like, you know, if somebody drove a 10,000-pound cube through your living room with bright lights, you don't want to know like what that is, right? To be fair, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of things are attracted to light. I mean, it's getting dark in the game here.
No, it's getting very dark here at only 45, 50 meters.
Well, it's nighttime, I think.
Oh, I missed that. I missed the...
There's this thing in the sky. There's this...
How many suns do we have here?
I thought you guys were scientists.
In the Andromeda Galaxy, or we have 1 star or 2 suns?
I don't think this is like a Tatooine situation.
Oh, we're not staring down a Tatooine situation?
I mean, the planet's frozen, right? So you gotta figure...
Oh, that's fair. So probably less solar energy. We could be farther away.
So this is maybe like a baby Europa or like Enceladus or something.
Okay, for folks that don't know what Europa is, Casey... What is it?
Well, I'm gonna alley you. So,
alley me. What is
Europa's one of the frozen moons of Jupiter, and so that's sort of one of the long range goals for one of the missions that we're doing here with Orpheus. Is we're trying to learn on Earth how best to explore oceans out in space as well, because it's a lot easier to get something into the ocean here than it is in space. And so one of the cool things about the super deep depths here in our planet is that the pressure that you feel at, say, the bottom of the Mariana Trench here is almost a one-to-one comparison to the pressures of the ocean. They're guessing somewhere like out off Jerusalem. So
Wow.
This is kind of like the first baby step in many getting to robots that can explore these ocean worlds or galaxy.
How similar?
Where they think maybe life.
How similar is the technology used, between robots exploring Mars and robots exploring the bottom of the ocean?
So quite similar, actually. We're working with a team from NASA JPL, the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory here. So half of our team is from Woods Hole Oceanographic.
Sorry, I'm getting attacked by.
Careful!
Oh.
Not a shark. Notably, not a shark.
Not a shark. So half of our team is from Woods Hole Oceanographic, the other half from NASA JPL, and so some of the navigation tools that we use, the software and the methods, we have something called terrain relative navigation, which means basically we take pictures of the seafloor and then use those to see how far we've gone through things. And
Oxygen.
from that, we can then create 3D maps and that sort of thing. And that technology, that terrain relative navigation, is the same thing that NASA JPL uses on the Mars landers. And so I don't know if anyone watched the most recent Mars landing where they're going through that 7 minutes of terror, that last descent towards Mars. They have a bunch of cameras that are looking down and trying to figure out the best place to land safely on the surface of Mars. And so in the process of maybe like a minute or something, it just looks at all the possible locations and determines the best one just based on camera imagery. So it's just like the way we do something and do that. So that kind of technology is one of the great sort of collaborative aspects that we've gotten from. We sort of have the expertise of how to go down and withstand the pressure and be watertight and all of that. And they're bringing the other avenues of exploration in the technology too, which is
so
really cool.
cool.
That's been really exciting for me working on this project. That's one of the things that gets me. Space is super cool. So anytime you're like, I do this, but also in space, it's great.
I have to ask,
Go for it, Cecilia. What we got?
Well, I mean, you see all of these very personified space robots, right? They have Twitter accounts, they have feelings, they're sad, they're happy, they're excited. How do you, as somebody who engineers robots that go to the bottom of the ocean, how do you feel about that? Do you sympathize with these guys, or are they just machines to you?
I would say they're very, very much personified in my opinion. I guess there's no better. We're gonna get real. We're gonna have some feels here for a second.
I love it.
So the beginning of my career, for the first 7 years, I worked on an ROV called Nereus, and so Nereus was the first robot that Woods Hole Oceanographic built to go down and do these super deep depths, and is I would say the parent of Orpheus, parent or grandparent or something like that. And unfortunately, in 2014, Nereus imploded while doing super deep research. We're 10 kilometers down there, and so we lost the robot, and that there was a real grieving period for all of that, and it hit very hard emotionally for a while. And it felt like you lost a friend or something like that.
Yeah.
So, talking about the little do you personify them? So Nereus, the thing I would do every time, and everyone was like, "You're crazy," but every time we launched it, I would wave bye to it, and every time we saw it on recovery, when it came back, I would say hello again. That was the thing I did every time.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. So we just upgraded to our EM304 multi-beam from an EM302. The EM302 was I think one of the oldest in service. It was a prototype. It was working great, but sometimes we'd have to reset and restart it. We always knew that if we played some Aretha Franklin, it would come on, and all of the conductors and all of the transmit receive unit pieces, like they would all come on really smoothly. I understand, like you really take great pride in what you do, and part of that is the tools you use. So you always, there's a certain sense of care there for sure, right? Shepherding electronics, shepherding the equipment. Absolutely, I get it.
You gotta have your little whatever the routine is. That like I know at NASA JPL they do like the peanuts before
Peanuts,
or like during descent or something like that. But I mean we used to have descent gummy bears.
We have gummy bears in the ship. You can see our light up gummy bear. All right, when we leave off.
Okay, fine.
Sorry.
I hate to pause the science talk for a second, but I do have a video game question. We have somebody in chat who's telling me to make a med kit. I would love to make a med kit, but I have not played a Subnautica game before, so excuse me. I do not know.
Go to the fabricator.
But it doesn't look like...
I can be tech support for this.
Please.
If you go into your personal thing, there shouldn't be. So you need to find what you need to find is the stuff that lets you make that, which is fiber, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I thought they were telling me.
I think you need. Can you make a knife? Can you make a knife yet?
Let's find out. I'm sorry. I thought you were telling me I had the ingredients to do this, but I do not.
Yeah, so make the survival knife and then go over to those really tall plants that float up, and then you could like hack some off of that and you'll get, I think, like fiber mesh. I think that's what you need to make.
Oh my god, you know so much stuff, including about the fake ocean.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt so ridiculous playing Subnautica, which I neither support nor what any disclaimer is, but I played it a lot, but it was always funny to me. I'm like, I'm playing a video game that's like basically what I do for a living.
I did an article.
Really weird, but it's good.
I did an article about that several years ago about truckers who play. Oh, I think I might have frozen. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you're back now.
Oh, great. Sorry about that. I did an article several years ago about truckers who play American Truck Simulator and city builders who play SimCity. And that is a huge thing. People love to play streamlined versions of their day jobs without the interpersonal drama, without, the hardware breaking. Yeah. What does that say about capitalism? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Not venturing yet.
I got nothing there. I do like this fabricator you have on there. One of our earlier expeditions, our office, NOAA Ocean Exploration, had this team out that was doing 3D printing from University of Rhode Island, and they had this 3D printer at sea on a gimbal printing. I think the first thing was a Devil's Playground, and then they actually printed these small handheld CTD pieces that we put to depth. It actually worked.
Oh, what piece?
I always thought that was like the first step. If you're in space, you're in the ocean, and the piece breaks, hey, why not just 3D print to that scene, right? Just make it again.
So those big, tall, like brass things behind you, those are what you want to cut with your knife once you get it. And that'll give you the fiber.
Thank you, Casey.
Oxygen.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome, Raiders. Thank you for coming. Maybe we should reintroduce ourselves since we got so many new people. I'm Cecilia. I'm a reporter with Wired. I cover video games, and I'm joined by some amazing scientists today playing Subnautica. Do you want to reintroduce yourselves?
Yeah, real quick. I'm Casey Machado. I'm from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. I am a research engineer, robotics engineer, and I design and operate underwater robots for a living.
And hi, my name is Mike White. I'm an expedition coordinator with NOAA's Office of Ocean Exploration and Research. We are coming to you live from the NOAA ship Okeanos Explorer in Port Canaveral, Florida. We are about to depart tomorrow on our 2021 technology demonstration. We have a team of Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution scientists on board, Casey. We have a team from NOAA Ocean Exploration, myself and others. We have a team doing environmental DNA. We have a team from NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. You can follow us at oceanexplorer.gov. So we're really excited. We're really excited to talk to everybody tonight. See some Subnautica.
Yeah.
Yeah, the game is so beautiful. I'm really enjoying it so far.
Very ambient.
I want to hear a little bit more about your trip tomorrow, though. So, like, what actually goes into preparing a huge endeavor like what you're going to be doing? Like, how long did it take for you to prepare? Like, what are some things that you might not expect to have to prepare? Like, how do you get food? How do you get water?
Well, so I mean, that's basically your job, right?
That is my job. So we sail with a full team of scientists, but also, of course, our wonderful officers from the NOAA Corps, which is a uniformed service, as well as the wage mariners with the Office of Marine and Aviation Operations out here on the ship. So in addition to us who are on the science engineering side of things, we have folks who have spent the last, week storing food, preparing to make sure that the ship is nice and clean, wiping it down, making sure we have all the resources on board. Believe it or not, Cecilia, once we get out to open ocean, we can actually make our own water on board using one of two systems. Usually they reverse osmosis, so we can actually make our own water from ocean water. So water is not usually one of our limiting factors, believe it or not.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. What do you eat down there? And also, like, what do you crave?
Ooh. Well, I have to say the food on the ship is awesome. We have a cold salad bar. We have a hotline with a ton of food. We are always exploring. That's one of our mantras at NOAA Ocean Exploration. So we'll have teams of scientists and engineers, plus the crew, plus the officers going 24 hours a day. We have plenty of midnight, overnight rations. We eat. I think it's fair to say we eat regular meals like one would at home. Maybe a little bit heavier since the work. I mean, we're working 12+ hour days, but it's pretty similar to what you would have at home.
Yeah, everything's kind of served like buffet style.
Yeah.
And that, but yeah, I mean, good eating, and you work hard, you eat a lot.
Has anybody showed you the ice cream freezer yet?
There's an ice cream freezer?
Nobody showed you the ice cream freezer?
What?
I might have dropped the ball there. That's my bad, Cecilia. Yeah, so there is a hidden ice cream freezer.
Holding out.
It's up forward, so I'll have to showcase it as soon as we're done here.
So that's where I will be the rest of the cruise.
Is there like anything that you really, really crave when you're down there? Like, oh God, like I don't normally eat McDonald's, but I would kill for a Big Mac. Or are you just like all healthy all the time?
I mean, I will say something that's most of the ships, at least the government ships, are dry ships, so there's no alcohol or any sort of illicit substances or any of that, which is great and very conducive to getting work done. It's great. But come the end of a cruise, it's definitely it's one of the things that usually teams look forward to. Is there's usually like in non-pandemic times at least, you kind of come back from the end of the cruise and there's a cruise party and everyone like share a drink, kind of like post the success of the cruise. So that's sort of like the thing that the light at the end of the tunnel that people usually look forward to, at least in my experience.
I think that's fair. Maybe just like a cold adult beverage at the end of the day. Like after we did, mapping overnight, we collected environmental DNA samples. We did CTD casts. We had, autonomous underwater vehicles in the water. Maybe just like a cold beverage with friends, just to like celebrate the success. A lot of hard work goes into this. I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. Is there like, what are some situations that like what are some like, how do I put this? What are some situations that you're really nervous about encountering when you're down there? Is there anything that you guys are like, this is a worst case scenario, but it's happened once or twice and we do everything we can to prevent it from happening? Like, what if you get a leak? What if a big whale comes and whacks you with its tail?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've kind of, so we have this mantra: don't put anything in the ocean that you're afraid to lose, because I mean it's a pretty unforgiving, and so we're very much used to. I've seen many things come back with a lot more water in them than they had. Like our pressure housings will flood and that, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about going to sea is when stuff doesn't quite go right and things break, and you bring it back to the ship, it's not like you can just, go on Amazon and order a new one and it'll like get dropped off. Like, you have what you have out there, and you have to figure out and engineer a solution to make it work with just what you have. And it may be like a paper clip and some electrical tape that make a new thing with or something.
I love that, because anything that you need to work with is already out there with you, and if you don't have it, you got to get pretty thrifty. So there are a lot of workarounds out here, and that's one of like kind of the brilliance of having such like a diverse kind of background team is when something goes wrong, a lot of people pull together to find a solution with whatever materials you have, no matter how far you are away from shore, which is usually pretty far.
We have a great question in chat, which is, are you ever like, I can see the swordfish right there, I just want to grill them? Or are ocean fish friends not food for y'all by now?
I always wonder, so like when we have the remotely operated vehicles down like a few miles below the sea surface, and you see like a red crab, right, or like a spiny lobster, like I think about like what do you think they taste similar to like a Maine lobster? Or do you think like being like 3 miles below the surface they taste different?
So, two stories about that. One, I was on an expedition out of Hawaii, and they would sort of like in downtime they would fish off the back of the ship, and they caught a giant tuna.
Okay.
And they came back and brought it on deck, and then we ate it like hours later. The steward fried it up. It was absolutely
oh my god!
It was so good, and some of it was like sushi, and it was so good. Second story. More towards what you were talking about. There was some fishing that was going on like much deeper or something. Like they did like a deeper line tow, and they caught a bunch of fish and they brought them back up, and they were like, "Oh, we can have these for chow or something." And one of the biologists came out and they were like, "That fish's blood is like 50% mercury or something." They're like, "Oh, we can't eat that."
Oh god, I'm gonna die.
So one of the things my office does, Celia, is we're out there in the deep sea really doing things like identifying critical fish habitat or looking for these diverse coral and sponge habitats. So like when people do want to eat seafood on their table, an important element for us is making sure that seafood is the folks who are making decisions about the management of that seafood are making them with the best information possible. So for those fish eaters out there, we're hoping you're enjoying what you're serving, but there's a lot of work that goes into making sure those things are managed responsibly.
Yeah, actually, personal story. The first time I ever learned about sustainable food, any sort of sustainable cultivation of food, was at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I was like 10 years old. I was so psyched to be there because aquariums are dope, and they had like octopodes, octopuses, whatever. And there was a stand there, and it was a fisheries expert who was just there talking to kids about how not to totally deplete the ocean's resources and poison the ocean in the process of acquiring materials for sushi. And it was like the moment that got me to care about it. It was amazing.
I mean, I totally get that, right? I mean, part of our future, right? We know some of our food. We know like things like resources. Like some of those things will come from the deep ocean, and you cannot make informed decisions about what you don't know. So like as the only federally funded program that does ocean exploration, like we really take that to heart, and we really try to provide publicly all of the data, everything you see behind us. It's all public. But provide that informative, quality, and actionable science for those kind of people to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the next frontier for sustainable fishing? Like, it seems like people have had conversations about, farm versus wild fish. People are having conversations about overfishing. What is like the conversation about that people aren't quite having it or aren't quite ready to have?
I don't know. So I'm not a fish biologist, right? Casey's background's in engineering. My background's in mapping acoustics and coordination. I don't know. I'm not a fish biologist, but I mean, if I could say anything, it's definitely just education and awareness for folks to know like what they're putting on their table and what they're serving their family.
Yeah. I would like to talk a little bit about what your specialties are as well, and like how it's going to play out on your mission tomorrow. Can you tell me, how do you get into like ocean robotics, Casey? Like, what is the path for somebody who's interested in pursuing something like that?
Yeah, I think the for me, I mean, I can describe my path. My degree is in mechanical engineering. So if you're into robotics, it's usually sort of electrical engineering or mechanical engineering or sort of the computer science programming. All of those are perfectly valid ways to do it. And mean, my best advice for people like wanting to get into that is like schooling and classes and all of that stuff are like that's fine. You kind of cover the bases, but like do cool projects. Like build your own little personal ROV or join your like mate team, which is like an ROV competition or that sort of thing, and do like hands-on stuff. Because when we interview for people, like everybody we interview for has like gone to college, got a degree, and they obviously there's sort of different levels that you can achieve in that, and so it's not worth nothing. But the things that always strike me are like, what did you do sort of that is hands-on and out in the field? Because like I was talking about, when we get out in the field, it's you never have an optimal situation. So for me, I started out. I don't know if anyone remembers the show BattleBots.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So when I was in high school, I was obsessed with that show, and I made a BattleBot that was like, I don't know, it was about like this big, weighed 100 pounds.
Yeah.
I never like went to the show and competed or anything, because apparently shipping a 100-pound robot designed for killing other robots across the country is kind of expensive.
Sure.
So I never did, but that was when they interviewed me for my internship at Woods Hole. That was what I talked about. They were like, "That's super cool."
Yeah.
So that was how I got my job.
That's so cool. Michael, how about you? How do you get into underwater engineering?
So my background is actually in geospatial software and hydrographic processing. I actually started my career with NOAA as a hydrographic analyst. So I was working with the Office of Coast Survey, and that is the group that puts together all of the nautical charts, all of the digital charts, maintaining safe navigation for all of the shipping, so for that laptop that just arrived from overseas, right? And then from there, I actually joined NOAA Ocean Exploration as a mapping lead, mapping expedition coordinator, and had an opportunity to lead deep sea mapping teams in Hawaii and American Samoa and the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
And then I had this another job open up here where I was then working with a remotely operated vehicle team, and I said, yeah, that sounds really fun too. So my background is much more in sort of like a geospatial software processing position versus Casey, where definitely hardcore engineering. I will also say, right, so I mean, you're talking to us, but of our team of almost 20 scientists, like we have folks that do all of it. We have videographers on board, we have biologists on board, we have engineers on board, we have folks that are really into genetics and omics. So there's a lot of ways to get involved in the science and engineering that is deep sea ocean exploration. And we have a lot of ways actually to get involved with our office. We have several explorer and training tracks. So folks that are kind of more senior in college or doing a gap year, or your early professionals or those in graduate programs, we actually offer quite a few internship opportunities to either come and sail with us or work with us on shore with a few of our different divisions. And I also want to give another shout out to, like, that's just the science and engineering team we have on the ship. I mean, we have chefs on board, we have folks who are driving the ship. So if you're interested in ocean exploration, if you're interested in deep sea science, there's so many ways to get involved.
So how about the viewers right now?
Yes.
How can they get involved in this current expedition that we're in?
So we have a website, and we have a Twitter account, oceanexplorer.gov. We're going to be posting pretty regularly everything you're doing. You can watch the live stream from our ship. So our ship actually has a special, very small aperture terminal, VSAT connection, so our satellite communications. You can watch us in real time all the time, as well as during our remotely operated vehicle cruises, oceanexplorer.gov.
She's writing on the board. Sorry.
My friend Rachel Goulbrook, who's our communications specialist on board, also from Ocean Exploration.noaa.gov. Excuse me. oceanexplorer.noaa.gov, and maybe one of my friends could put it in the chat here. So there's a lot of ways to get involved. If you're just curious and watching us, if you want to come and work with us, if you want to come and maybe try an explorer and training track, we're very passionate about engaging the next generation of ocean explorers. So a lot of ways to get involved.
And any of these like live stream stuff, like we love just ask your questions, and we try to catch them and get away, and just even if it's just like an interest for you on the side, like it's super motivating for us to have like good engagement from the public.
Absolutely.
We love showing you what we do, and we also like I've had people say like, "Oh, well, why don't you do something this way?" And I'm like, "That's a great idea.
Yeah, why not?
Next time,
Why not?
That's great. I think
Everyone
our
can
time.
contribute."
Yeah, and speaking of everybody contributing, our time is wrapping up. I'm also totally failing to get what I need to get in Subnautica, but I'm having a really good time in this game. Before we go, is it okay if we have like 5 minutes for people to ask you guys questions about your upcoming journey or your career paths or your love of Elder Scrolls or D&D?
We'll do rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. Let's go, chat. Let's go. I see someone asking, how much plastic do you see when you're down there?
Unfortunately, we have been to some of the most remote parts of the ocean here on Earth, and we do see marine debris in those areas. So, part of responsible management of the oceans is making sure those types of things don't end up there. We do see some, and it is unfortunate.
I see one. Will the robots in Europa be able to explore by themselves?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, it's really hard to get communication all the way out there and back, and so there'd be big delays. So the goal is yes, and the questions that they're trying to answer now are how do they do that exploration, and what are the most important things they're looking for. And so if you're only limited by a small robot that you need to launch out there, like, what sensors does it need to look for, and what are the things? And so right now it's sort of using our oceans to determine, like, well, what are the telltale signatures of life that we find in our oceans at hydrothermal vents, or that sort of thing.
So Jaws of the Meg, I'm going to go Jaws. AI-controlled sub, yes. So the terrain relative navigation is a bit of a learning software, right? It can learn from itself.
Yep.
Coolest deep sea creature, what do you have?
I think my coolest one is a tripod fish. Have you ever seen one of those things?
What's that?
So it's a fish, and it has, on the ends of its fins, it basically has these really tiny, wispy, spindly legs, and there's not always a lot of food way deep at the bottom, so creatures try to not move, right, to conserve energy. And so what it does is it stands maybe about a foot above the seafloor on these, like, 3 legs on, like, a tripod, and it just sits there, and then when something crawls underneath it, it just pounces down and goes for it. Yeah.
Isn't that how cephalopods, get prey?
I think
so, yeah, like new squid.
Like doing this hand gesture.
One of my favorite are like giant sea spiders. So they're pretty big, and they have these like very long spindly legs, and some of them can actually move through the water column. And I just think about like that on dry land, like a foot large like spider floating at you. I don't know, for whatever reason, I think that's just fascinating.
I saw photos of that the other day. I saw one that was floating at the very, very bottom of the ocean. They were saying like, we don't know anything about this creature, but it had like 200-foot long legs, and it was just floating there. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that big, but like they're just like wild creatures with like all legs and little body.
Ooh. That's so scary.
Do you measure element levels in the area of your dive? Is that CO2, oxygen? So we, very standard for, and this is Icarus factor, very standard on almost all oceanographic equipment. We have something called a CTD, which measures salinity, temperature, and depth. We do pressure. So that's kind of like the background. So we're measuring like how salty is the water. But a lot of the stuff I do in the robots that I work for, and the stuff that they'll do in space, they're measuring other chemical concentrations for things like methane. You also end up measuring a lot of like pH and those sort of things. So any chemical or compound out there, a scientist is probably interested in measuring it.
That's
I would
great.
say. So there's a lot of water sampling, measuring compositions of it. That's a very common thing.
Just let's take one last question, and it's going to be a D&D question because I love D&D and I really want to hear the answer to this too. Somebody mentioned D&D. Do you have paper books? I guess assuming that you bring the books down there, or is it all digital so nothing is getting drenched at an awkward moment?
All right. So I mean, I'm a huge D&D person. I play in usually 3 games a week. I've never actually played Dungeons and Dragons at sea.
Can we play it?
Yeah, you can play it anywhere. So I would say I would probably bring digital books to answer the question. In that I know most of it in my head, so I'd only need a dice. I am planning on, next time we go back to the Mariana Trench, I am planning on taking a D20 and putting it on the robot and holding
Okay.
it down so I can have it. Like, this has been on a great journey. 20-sided die.
20-sided die.
Yeah.
All
An
right. Okay.
icosahedron.
Oh, icosahedron. Okay. Right. So fun word. Well, is that our last question, Cecilia?
Yeah, that is. But this has been amazing. It was great getting to know you guys. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge while we were exploring an alien ocean in Subnautica.
Our pleasure. Thank
Yeah,
you for
thanks for
playing.
having us.
Good luck with the med kit. And again, we're leaving tomorrow, but Casey, myself, our entire team on board, you can be following us at oceanexplorer.noaa.gov or Google Ocean Explorer NOAA, and you will find us. We're going to be posting stuff there. You can ask us questions. We have a whole communications team that's going to be there waiting for you. So please join us as we explore.
Yeah, send your questions along too. We'll try to get to all of them.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And thank you, chat, for tuning in and being engaged and asking questions. And hopefully we'll see each other soon. Remember to subscribe to Wired for our wonderful Alan Henry streams, which are, I would love to tell you which days of the week, but I do not remember. You can look them up.
What day is it?
Thursday.
It's been quite hot for a while.
It's Thursday. Have a good night, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Yes.